Looks like someone called the fun police. In today's most viral and breaking news, in my opinion, the Taliban have arrested or detained 4 young men for cosplaying Peaky Blinders on the streets of Herat in Afghanistan. 4 young Afghani men that were just like big fans of Peaky Blinders, and they're like, I want to dress up like Tommy Shelby and walk down the street of Herat, which is crazy to think about, but this is true.
Peaky Blinder now, son.
But I want to take the time in this video to break down why this happened and like what led up to their arrest and what's going to happen to them now in this video. So that's the plan. So let's get into it. So like I said, the story focuses on 4 young men in their early 20s, identified as Ashgar Hussaini, Jalil Yaqubi, Ashur Akbari, and Daud Rasa, who dress up to cosplay Peaky Blinders as a fun, creative way to express yourself, like most people do when they go to these conventions and stuff like that. Now, for those of you that have been living under a rock, I'm sure everybody at this point knows what Peaky Blinders is, but just in case you don't, Peaky Blinders is a British television show that aired from 2013 to 2022 on BBC and Netflix, depicting a fictionalized version of a street gang in post-World War I Birmingham, England. The show, which was starring Cillian Murphy as like the charismatic gang leader, was a global phenomenon and was extremely popular across all of Western civilization for his distinctive 1920s inspired fashion, his tailored 3-piece suits, his long woolen overcoats, and his cap, as well as his constant chain smoking. It was such a viral show that the style actually influenced modern menswear across the planet, especially in the Western world, with elements like the flat cap, the overcoat, leather gloves, things like that. So even in places like Afghanistan or Pakistan, where oftentimes there may be some religious like restrictions or social restrictions, even they're able to get like, you know, see this stuff on the internet, and they're able to like get inspired by it. Now, the group of 4 boys that were from Afghanistan were from a place called Jibrail, also spelled Jibrail or Jibril. Interesting town. It's a township in Afghanistan's southern Herat province, which is crazy to think about. There were people fighting in Herat not very long ago, only a few years back. But at first, the 4 of them experimented with these outfits and were just trying them on privately. And they were filming videos and posting it on TikTok and other social media platforms. And apparently they were getting enough support from people who were like, oh, that's awesome, keep it up. They got bold enough and gained enough intestinal fortitude and courage to venture out into the town, donning their long trench coats, their flat caps, and their slim fit suits and polished shoes, and walking down the street shoulder to shoulder of the dusty streets of Herat. Almost like the Peaky Blinders TV show where the Shelby family does the same thing. They walk down the street, you know, smoking cigars or cigarettes and wearing their flat brim caps and all that stuff. Now, by late November 2025, the photos and the videos of the 4 of them posing and walking confidently down the streets of Herat went viral all over the place. And then a lot of users started referring to them as the Jibril Shelbys, like in a joking, playful manner. And there were like clips that were going viral of people stopping next to them and taking selfies and taking videos and stuff like that. People were enjoying it. They were having a fun time. It was like a small happy place for people that live in a place that is heavily oppressed. Apparently, the 4 of them even appeared in a casual group interview on the local YouTube channel Herat Mike, which was posted around November 30th of 2025, where they explained how they were inspired by this style and why they made the decision to do this cosplay. One of the things that they said on that podcast was, quote, "At first we were hesitant, but once we went outside, people liked our style, stopped us in the streets and wanted to take photos with us," according to Jalil Yaqubi. Then he said, quote, "Some comments were negative, but we only paid attention to the appreciation." Now, when they were asked about it, they said that they didn't do this just to mimic Western culture. They were doing it because they actually planned on showcasing traditional attire from Afghanistan's diverse cultural groups like the Pashtun or the Hazara styles to showcase cultural pride in the type of fashion that is local to the region. And so they plan on doing more of this stuff. Now, you got to remember, the Taliban have what's called the Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice. Basically, the Taliban morality police. And within days of this stuff all going viral towards the later part of November, the Taliban morality police from the Ministry of the Propagation of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice tracked them down and found out where they lived. Now, just to give you an idea, these are the guys that are the regime's enforcers of Sharia-based societal norms. And Sharia law is very strict, and the country of Afghanistan is now governed by Sharia law since the Taliban took over the country in 2021. So on or around December 8th of 2025, the four were summoned to a local office in Herat, and they were swiftly detained after they were accused of, quote, promoting foreign culture by imitating actors from a British movie, which was an act that was deemed affront to Islamic and Afghan values. Now, I know this started off as like funny and cute, but this right here, like I've said in many other videos before, is just another example of the Taliban's crackdown that fits their broader campaign to purify the country and society after retaking power in 2021. Now, like I said, once the US and all NATO forces withdrew from Afghanistan in 2021, the Taliban instituted their strict Deobandi interpretation of Sharia law, which basically says that any Western-influenced behavior, especially visible on social media, is seen as corrosive cultural invasion, so it's not allowed. Hence why I said they are the fun police, because Sharia law is basically the same thing as the type of law that the Puritans followed, the Christian Puritans used to follow, like very rigid religious ideological laws. And this is what you get when you blend religion and government together, which is why they have a separation between church and state in the United States. So part of this Sharia law code that they have is dress codes. Dress codes are like a real hot topic in reference to Sharia law. For example, men must wear loose traditional Parahan tunban, like shirt and pants. They must grow beards, and they must avoid effeminate or modern hairstyles. In fact, barbers have actually been raided in Afghanistan for giving Western haircuts like undercuts or fades. So if you're a barber in Afghanistan and you give somebody a fade, you could get detained by the fun police for re-education. Now, for the Peaky Blinders cosplayer guys, the outfits basically represent a lot of stuff that's forbidden in the Afghan version of Sharia law that they're enforcing over there, because there's tailor Western suits that, you know, kind of represent colonial era Britain. The flat caps are definitely not Islamic headwear. They don't look like the regular headwear that Afghans would wear. Even the way that they walk, like in the TV show that the young men were trying to mimic, is viewed as moral laxity because it's like kind of a swagger to it. So now the Ministry of the Propagation of Virtue and Prevention of Vice spokesman is a guy by the name of Saif-ur-Salam Khyber. It's sometimes spelled Saiful Islam Khyber. He led the charge on this whole thing, posting on X, formerly, about the incident and releasing an official video saying, quote, "Praise be to Allah. We are Muslims and Afghans. We have our own religion, culture, and values." And then he said, "Through numerous sacrifices, we have protected this country from the spread of harmful cultures, and now we are also defending it." Additionally, he also stated, quote, "The clothing they wore has no Afghan identity at all and does not match our culture. Secondly, their actions were an imitation of actors from a British movie. Our society is Muslim. If we are to follow or imitate someone, we should follow our righteous religious predecessors in good and lawful manners." And then after that, he basically framed this detention not as like a punishment, but more so like a, quote, rehabilitation. And he insisted online that the men were merely being like advised to do stuff rather than formally arrested, though a lot of their friends, like the young men's friends, described it as a terrifying ordeal because the group was held for hours or days in like a prison-like facility, and who knows what happened while they were in there. Now, the ministry's video, shared widely all over the place, featured one of the men, apparently an Instagram influencer who has 5 million followers. Interesting, I didn't know that. Apparently he was tearfully repenting on camera, saying, quote, "I'm on Instagram and have 5 million followers." And then he said, "Without realizing it, I used to publish and spread things that were against Sharia. I was summoned and advised, and from today onward, I will no longer engage in such sinful activities, and I have stopped." Obviously, that was like one of those coerced apologies that they record and broadcast on state television and social media to serve as a deterrent for anybody else considering doing cosplays, and also propaganda for people as well. Now, the men were shortly released after, but I'm sure there was a psychological toll that was left, and I guarantee their lives were threatened. They're like, "Hey, you do this again, we're gonna," you know what I mean? Because that's unfortunately the way Afghanistan is, you know. They've been having public executions out there recently. Been seeing videos of that. Don't put that up in this video, but there's some videos of that out there right now. Apparently, according to a close friend of theirs who was, I guess, spoken to, he referred to it as ridiculous and said, quote, "The country always feels like a prison. Our friends wore these outfits for no political or other reason, just for fun, and the Taliban's religious police detained them. They admired the British series and wanted to share that admiration, but it turned into a nightmare." Now, by December 9th through the 10th, the young men were back home at their houses, but the social media accounts that they had were scrubbed of the offending content. They were probably told to delete it, and they reportedly vowed to stick to halal posts going forward. Apparently, no formal charges were filed, and the ministry touted it as a success story, saying that they successfully repented for their sins. However, some critics of this have said that such arrests illustrate the widening scope of restrictions on personal expression under Taliban rule, including clothing choices, social media activity, and artistic self-presentation. Now, this isn't abnormal for Afghanistan because there's been similar things that have happened in relation to this type of thing, including 2 street magicians in the Balkh province were arrested for, quote, witchcraft. And there's also been barbers that were flogged for trimming people's beards and stuff like that because that goes against their laws as well. Now, regardless of if the young men were re-educated or retrained or whatever, this story has blown up all over the place. It's one of the most viral things I've seen in a while, with people like users mocking it online all over the place. One user saying, quote, "Okay, this is hilarious news. 4 boys in Afghanistan arrested for dressing as Peaky Blinders. The boys have to apologize and said they were not aware that wearing pants and coats were against Sharia." My question here is, if wearing pants is against Sharia, why is the whole Taliban army wearing pants left back by NATO? If you're afraid of Western culture and Western civilization infecting the young minds of your people, why are you wearing all of the Western civilization's gear? It's a good question. A lot of people also vented a lot of their frustrations because they were saying, like, it's strange how Afghans go to Western countries and freely dress in their own cultural clothes, but in Afghanistan, they can't tolerate even a hint of Western fashion. That's crazy. Global media amplified the absurdity naturally because, like, Daily Mail, CBS, all these other people run in a bunch of stories saying how the Taliban are essentially being the fun police again. Now, the funny thing is that this is all coming on the tail end of, I've seen like a slew of influencers going to Afghanistan to tour the country and vlog their travels there and then leave and come back. You've probably seen videos of it. And I don't know, whoever goes there is nuts, in my opinion. If you're a person from Western civilization at all, and you're like, I'm just trying to go to film a YouTube video on like inside of Afghanistan, you're risking a lot, man. You're risking a lot, you know? That's an entire country ran by a militant organization. You're risking everything. Anyway, I think that this just kind of like highlights the fact that the Taliban are still, you know, they still have a zero tolerance for any type of cultural hybridization, and they definitely don't tolerate Western culture influencing the young minds of people in Afghanistan because, like they said before, they believe that it's sinful and corrosive to Sharia law and the culture that they're trying to build for the nation there. And there's lots of other things that they do that are terrible too that I could talk about, but we won't talk about it here. I just wanted to talk about the young boys who dressed up like Thomas Shelby and the other Peaky Blinders. I hope that maybe one day they get out of that country and they can go somewhere where they can freely cosplay Peaky Blinders. Maybe they can get out of the country and get to Europe or something and dress like Peaky Blinders up there. Because it sounds to me like they want to have some style, you know? I'll leave you with this. One of the last things that I saw somebody say on X about it was, it's a, quote, joyless piece of a country. Joyless. You know, that's the unfortunate thing. You know, when you have a regime that is on a quest for ideological purity and they don't allow any type of other cultures to impact their culture, that's what you get, man. You know? So, yeah, that's about it. All right, guys, that's it for the daily roll-up for today. I appreciate you watching the video all the way through from start to finish. Believe it or not, that does help support the channel because it tells YouTube, hey, recommend this video to more people. Another way you can support the channel is you can like this video, you can leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can share this video with your friends. If you want to see more of this type of content, this type of video, please subscribe to the channel. Just go ahead and click that little bell. I'll give you a second. Just go ahead. You know what I mean? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much for sticking around, and we will see you in the next video.